Melanie Young. She is with the Texas chapter of MUFON. She is a lead investigator, and I just want to get to know her right now. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a Texan through and through. I was born in the Panhandle up in Lubbock, grew up in Alpine, and I am now living in El Paso. Professionally, I was a registered nurse. I'm now retired. Then I went into massage therapy and did spiritual healings and massage, and have been interested in the paranormal and UFO for as far back as I can remember. And I've had multiple experiences with UFOs, with ETs, multiple different species, and I volunteer and am the chief investigator for the state of Texas and MUFON.
So how in the world did you end up getting together with MUFON?
Well, it all started with reading a book called The God Hypothesis by Joe Lewis. I met him, and he was the state section director for the El Paso area of MUFON. He helped me deal with some of my experiences with ETs, and because of that, I got involved with MUFON. Then I became the owner of the Starchild skull, and that launched my investigative part of MUFON, and here I am.
So when exactly did you start talking about your experiences?
1988, 89.
Okay, so
I started becoming aware of them.
back in those days, and being I was around high school age about that time, I know it was kind of taboo to talk about such things.
Right.
As right now, especially with the new shows that come out on cable and everything,
Yeah.
you know, it's more exposure and people a little more open to it now. What was that like back then?
Well, there was a lot of fear because, my job could have been on the line.
Right.
Ridicule. I haven't come out to my family, unless they listen to these types of things, they don't know about it. I don't talk about it very often unless I'm doing something in the field. It's not like I just go into a dinner party and say, oh, by the way, I was abducted last night. Just not something you come out and say. And I don't I have my massage friends and my paranormal friends, and I have my UFO friends, and then I have my gambling friends, and the two shall never meet. So you just pick and choose who you can tell and who is safe to. Even today, even in the UFO field, you don't talk to everybody about you being an experiencer, because it's still taboo even there, because anywhere. You just never know who's going to think you're crazy. And
that was my next point was, how many people out there are just going to think you're Looney Tunes. But, I know people that claim that they've had experiences and things like that. And as we talked before we went on air, my daughter said that she had an experience actually seeing one, and, you kind of pick and choose, like you say, who you talk to about. I mean, I'm a paranormal investigator. We go out and we hunt ghosts, and I don't tell everybody about that because some people think you're just off your rocker.
Yeah, you just pick and choose who you talk to. You don't. I actually went to a therapist that I know and was talking to her, and I said, well, these things have happened to me, and she did the typical therapeutic thing. Well, I know that's what you think you saw. And that's when I thought, you're an idiot, I'm leaving.
Exactly.
And I opened up to her because I knew that she had been to a MUFON meeting where Dr. John Mack had spoken, because it was a meeting that the MUFON people that I was dealing with at the time did. So I had access to who had come to the intake form on, your sign-in sheet. And I was like, well, I know her. I can go and talk to her and tell her what's been going on, and maybe she can help me through this. And, John Mack was Harvard, a psychiatric doctor at Harvard. And, he almost lost his tenure over doing research on experiencers. And he fought this establishment and kept his tenure.
Wow.
But so, even today, it's still hard. And as somebody who's had these experiences, it's not uncommon to think that you are crazy.
Of
So,
course.
you judge yourself being an experiencer. And so everybody else is, people are just going to judge you on what you say no matter what. So, but when you're having these experiences, you tend to think you're crazy because they're just weird, you know. And it's like, did that really truly happen? Did I make this up? Do I really need more meds?
Hey, believe me, I've asked myself the same questions when I've been
Mhm.
out, doing my paranormal investigations.
Yeah,
So yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah. So it's just been an interesting journey through this world I live in.
Now, do you mind sharing your experiences with us?
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Well, let's
when
start
I
with your first one.
when I first realized I had had experiences, I was again talking with Joe Lewis, who wrote the book, The God Hypothesis. If you're really interested in learning how this stuff starts, that's a great book to start with, in my opinion. It's easy read, a good book to go to. But in The God Hypothesis, in the book, as I was reading it, it was talking about the hybrid children and, how they're born, how they're taken, and how they're raised and stuff like that. And there was a picture in the book that just kind of pulled me out of my sleeping state, and it's like, I've seen that before. Oh shit. It was my aha moment.
Mhm.
And so I got with him. He's a hypnotherapist who does these types of things, and his research is on abductees. So we did our first regression, and he regressed me back to the first time that I'd had an experience with extraterrestrials, and we went to two past lives. So it went on to Native Americans pre-Columbus. And then I had one that was like really cool in England, where I saw this humongous mothership above the city that I was living in as I was going to the market. And you're like, here I am. I believe in past lives. I mean, I believe in reincarnation, but I never thought it would be me. So, and a lot of people who do that, who want to who are wannabes. Oh, I was Cleopatra, or they come up with somebody really famous. No, I was just a housewife. That's all I was. But it's just really interesting how that came out. But I've had experiences in this lifetime since I was about 3.
Oh wow.
And the last one that I have conscious memory of was 9/11, when the
Really?
towers came down. And I woke up that morning um, with horrible electrical shock coming down my spine. And I have at least 3 hybrid kids that I know of, and probably more. But I felt them on the bed as I was coming out of it. And there was this vortex in the corner of the hotel room I was in. And it did one of these boom, boom things, and then just shut down. But as I was coming out of it, I was like, no, don't take them. Just let me see them just one more time. And they were gone. So it's like they were vanished into not thin air, but they went through the wall back to wherever they came from. But during that thing, I got the message, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. So when the towers went down, it was like, oh, that's what they were talking about. So it was just real interesting to see how that kind of came to be.
Now, I'll tell you, I am so into Ancient Aliens. I watch that show every chance I get.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these things that I thought were far-fetched, I hear people like Von Daniken and others explain it. And, I mean, here you've got people that are known scientists and
Mm-hmm.
authors and things like that. And now I think, maybe this isn't so far-fetched after all. And an organization like MUFON, I'm sure if you didn't have some credibility, they wouldn't have taken you on in the first place.
No, they wouldn't have, and they know about my abduction experiences, so they know where I'm coming from, and they still wanted me to be the chief investigator of Texas, which is a fairly large state. So it's an honor for them to allow me to pay them to do their investigations. So that says something. I mean, they're a nonprofit, and all of our investigators have to pay to be a member of MUFON. Then they have to pay to be an investigator, and then it's all volunteer work. So we're dedicated people.
Oh, yeah.
And MUFON's been around for 50 years, or 51 or 52 now. And so we're, the whole goal of MUFON is to scientifically investigate sightings or crashes, or even I'm on the experiencer research team now. So not only am I the chief investigator for Texas, I do investigations. I am on the what they call the experiencers research team. So now I'm even busier volunteering my time, which is becoming almost full time now, doing this type of thing.
Okay.
So,
do you know Jan Harzen?
I have not met the man,
Mm-hmm.
but I was talking to somebody from the board, and they're like, "He knows who you are, Melanie. Don't worry." And I'm like, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" But I guess I'm okay.
I've interviewed him in the past, and
Uh-huh.
awesome man. I really enjoyed talking to him. Him and do you know Carolyn Corey?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
she does a lot of stuff on Ancient Aliens. I don't think
Oh,
she's
okay.
actually affiliated with MUFON, but she's awesome to talk to too.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about more of your experiences.
Well, I have two girls that I had one when I was 16, and one, I'm going to say, when I was in my 20s. And then I have a little boy. Well, he's not little anymore. He's full grown, good 7 or 8 feet tall now. But I still can grab his ear and bring him down to me if I need to. And he knows who his mama is, and he ain't going to mess with me. He will do what he's told when he's in my presence, and then he'll go do whatever the hell he wants later. But so my girls are part gray. If you know what a gray is, they have the almond eyes, but they have colored eyes. They're green and blue. And they have what I call chemo hair, a little bit of blonde, frail, straw-like hair. And they're about 5 feet tall. And then my son is a reptilian.
Oh, wow. I want to talk more about that too.
Okay. And he's in his 20s by now, and he has his own ship, and so he's runs his own crew and does his own thing, and I'm really kind of proud of him. I'm really glad that they let me still have contact with him.
Oh, wow. So I need to know more about reptilians because I've heard it mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and I hear bits and pieces, but I want to know more about them.
Okay. Um, the way I look at it, everybody thinks the reptilians are evil, and I think that's just because of the term reptile.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have one of my mentors who I have known since the beginning. He's a wonderful, wonderful man, but he's you know, he looks like a crocodile without the tail. He's got the snout. He's what we call a crocodilian. Um, but he's a very, very sweet, ancient, old guy, but full of knowledge. So the way I look at any of the species that I've dealt with is they're just like humans. You've got some good, you've got some bad, and you've got some really evil ones. And I've met all of them. You know, I've had experiences with a lot of them. But I hold judgment until there's something to judge. Um, the reptilians, sometimes this is where your screened memories come in. They will screen the memories so that you don't get so freaked out by them, because they do look so. And I hate, you know, there's a snake show coming on TV. Before it even shows up, during the commercials, my toes are curled and up off the floor, you know. So so that's, their appearance is scary to me until I'm calmed down. So even my son, when he was little, it freaked me out to know that he was my son, but yet he had this crocodilian look. And then when they placed him in my arms, you know, you want to snuggle with them, but when you see something like that, and you're like, it's way out here, I don't want to touch him. And then you realize, oh wait, that's part me. And then the loving, tender person inside of me, the one that wants babies so bad, just, you know, grabs onto him like it's the end of the world. Don't take him back. But it was rough, you know, because I don't have children and I want them so bad on this planet. So it was rough having kids and not getting to see them a lot.
So I'm gonna ask you a question, and
Okay.
I'm not saying this in jest. I'm
Okay.
asking this seriously. But I'm sure you watched Star Trek when we were growing up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you remember when they were on that planet and there was a creature there that looked like a lizard? Do you remember that episode?
I don't remember the episode. No.
Okay, well, I was going to ask you if that's what they actually looked like. I mean, somewhere along that line.
Put a crocodile and put him up on his back hind legs and give him long arms and long legs, and that's what they look like.
Okay.
Okay, at least that's some of them. Okay, my son, when he was little, when he was young, he was greenish. The front of him had the white down the front like a crocodile, and then it was kind of a yellow, green, lime green around the front part of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he had the claws. He had a tail when he was little, and then it fell off. But he had the long snout. And then you've got other reptilians that don't have a snout, but that just that have the scale looking, you know, and the slit eyes like a snake or a crocodile.
Okay.
So you've got multiple different species out there, and multiple, you know, I've had experiences with the insectoids, the praying mantis kind.
Mm-hmm.
And these can all be on the same ship. You can have multiple different species on the same ship. So, I mean, I even had a one-time experience with ape-like, and I felt like I was from the planet. It was on the planet of the apes, and they were just like kind of passing through this area in the galaxy, and it was really a drive-by.
Right.
So, and I have a real sick sense of humor about it. So I tend to joke about it a lot. It's either joke or freak out, and that's how I deal with things. So,
right. Gotcha.
So that's just how it is.
Now, is it true that these different species, some of them are actually fighting over the planet Earth, and they're like in conflict with each other anyway?
Yeah, they're just like us. There's conflict out there. We are a free will planet. That's the one thing that separates us from the heathens, if you will. So there is a group that does protect us. That if somebody, because I had one really bad experience that a guy came through in my room and pulled me out of my bed and took me through a wormhole back to his house, or his dwelling, with him and his family, and he attempted to rape me. And he was chastised and punished strongly for that, because for some reason I'm protected, and this planet is protected, so that you'll have a lot of people who feel as if they are being violated. And I'm not saying that they're not. There are ways to combat that, to prevent that type of behavior. And the main thing is to remind them that you have free will and that you have not given them permission to do these things. And there is a tribunal that will handle that for you.
Oh.
So, and I don't think many people the general public does not know that. And a lot of experiencers do not know that. And so that is something that when I go to conferences and I go to these experiencers meetings, and you get these people in there who are totally freaking out that this shit's happening to them, if you will. That's the one thing I always bring up, hey, you have free will and they have to stop if you tell them to. Okay. The other problem is that there's a contract. When you're born into this planet on this level, you sign a contract pretty much before you're born, agreeing to whatever experiences you're going to experience. I remember signing that contract. I remember signing up for this adventure, and for signing up for the abductions and signing up for the kids. That's my reality. That's not always everybody else's reality. So, but my reality is that I signed up for it. So I have the right to rescind my contract, to tear it up if I want. I've chosen not to because I want to have a relationship with my kids. So that's the main reason why I haven't, even though I've had some horrible experiences. I've been threatened. I've been threatened not to talk about it. And they've threatened to kill me. And it's the reptilians that have done that. But I know that I've got guardians that will not allow that to happen. So.
Okay, I have to ask. Do they work with our government?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 2, Men in Black, real or just a fairy tale?
Depends on which ones you're talking about.
Okay, now I've heard that it's been either a government bureau, and I've also heard that they're actually aliens themselves.
I've heard that too, and I believe both. I do believe that the government is definitely aware of my actions, not only of my experiences, but I know my wires are tapped. They became tapped the minute I went public about the Starchild. So I've not worried about them coming to get me or anything like that, but I do know that the government's definitely involved. Come on, A-tip. That says everything right there. Star Wars, back when Reagan was happening, the Space Force. The Space Force has been going on since Reagan's time. It's coming out public now because of the Tic Tac thing. And the people are now saying, hey, we have it's a national crisis. It's they're interfering with our military, so it's national security. It always has been. It's just that Eisenhower knew that back in 47. So yeah, it's true.
So do you think that if it becomes a public thing where the aliens actually show themselves, do you think that's going to bring this planet together?
That's their goal. And they're never going to show up on the White House lawn. The War of the Worlds thing is never going to happen. So you're not going to get what you're never going to get what everybody is expecting. Okay. The fact that we're talking openly about it and it's being broadcast via Facebook and everywhere else, there's no disclosure because disclosure's already happening. Okay. The government's just stupid or smarter than we think to think that we don't know, that they know. You know, it's a game. And in my opinion, it's a stupid game because we already know. Those who have looked up in the sky already know. And those of us who are in the know because we go, who are willing to have an open mind about it, know that that we're all working together.
Okay, now we've come to the part of the interview that I have been waiting for. You mentioned the Starchild. Now I have to know about the Starchild and the skull.
Okay. Let me get it for you. Here you go.
Oh my God, it's the same one I've seen on television.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, you have to tell me about this.
Okay, well, 1998. A friend of mine who I was working with at the time came and asked me to, this was right as I was coming out and starting to tell people and to audiences about my experiences. And because of my involvement with MUFON and my knowledge as a nurse, as a neonatal nurse, which is a baby nurse, they said, hey, we've got this little bitty skull we want you to look at. So he's the first guy, he brought me pictures, and of course they made no sense to me because it just doesn't make sense when you look at this thing. And I said, I can't tell you anything. I got to see the real thing. So he brought it to me in a box, and the skull was glued to a wooden board, so that what was looking up at me was the face. But I didn't see it as a face. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. And then when I picked it up and turned it so that the face was looking square on me, then I realized, oh, those are the eyes. And because of the smallness and the shape and everything, I thought, well, my first thought, and this is what most people don't remember or don't get, my first thought is this is a deformed child, a human child that's deformed. Then I started looking at it, I'm thinking, but the deformities, the number of deformities I'm looking at were too numerous to allow a child to have survived as long as this one did. Mm-hmm. Because you can have 1 or 2 birth defects and you can live. But 3 or more, you won't live in this day and age. So this skull is 900 years old. How did it live as long as it did with this many defects? That was my first thought. This is totally historic. I've never seen it, never heard of anything like this. How did this thing live? What can we learn from it to help our children? Okay, that was my very, very first thought. Then the second thought is, well, the eyes are really weird. It's human bone. It feels human, but the eyes are weird. They kind of look like a gray. And then I thought, oh shit, that looks like my children. So this could be a hybrid. And then my next thought is, okay, it's either, if it's not a hybrid, if it's not a human, then that means it has to be an alien. So those were the 3 theories I had, but the number 1 theory was it was human. I want everybody to realize that, because I've been criticized and criticized over this. And then Lloyd Pye walked into my life. Lloyd never owned the skull. He was the person who I picked to do the research. And everybody seems to think that Lloyd gave it to me. No, I have always owned it, and I let Lloyd do the research. Lloyd Pye was a wonderful man. He was like a brother to me. And I hadn't heard of him at all until the day that I met him. So I didn't know what his work was on. I didn't know that, he was into Bigfoot. I had never even heard the term hominoid before. So I had never even considered people trying to figure out human origins, because I already know that we've been manipulated. So there's, these are things that just never dawned on me. I was extremely naive about the field itself and about the people in the field. So, which is another reason why I decided to come into the field, to bring more integrity into the field and try to do it right. But I brought Lloyd on, and we did a lot of research during that time. He was able to get a lot of testing done. The problem with Lloyd was that he had an agenda. He wanted to make the Starchild fit his alien human origin agenda, put the Starchild into the evolution of human origins. He did not want it to come back anywhere near human. He wanted it to come back completely alien. But I never saw that until after he passed. I had blinders on. I had complete trust and complete faith. And, but that's just how I am. I will have complete trust and faith in a person until they prove me wrong.
Right.
And it wasn't until after he died that I opened up to what was really going on. So it was just a mess, because he would not listen to the experts. He would not listen to the neurologist or the pediatricians or the radiologist or anybody, and just refused their explanations. And when you go to an expert, you're going to them for their expertise. Right. You've got to listen to them, or why bother? You don't go into your personal physician and say, I had a heart attack, and no, it was a kidney infection. You can't tell your doctor, oh, you're wrong, it was a heart attack. I don't care that I've got, bacteria in my urine. It had to have been a heart attack. You can't do that, or why go? So you can't pound it into, it can't become a fight between the paranormal people, the UFO people, and the establishment. You can't do that and have a working relationship. And my whole thing with what I do and my investigations and who I am is, I'm not going to roll over, but I'm going to work with. Mm-hmm. So if, you can prove to me that what this video is showing me is a butterfly or a fly or an insect, that's because of the way the camera angle is, then I'll accept that. We can actually look at a film and you can see an insect in the film and think it's a UFO, or think it's a rod, if you will, because you can actually count the flaps in that frame, and you can tell what kind of insect it truly is by how fast those wings are going. So you prove that to me, then I'm going to say, oh, okay, that's an insect. Or you see an orb, that could just be dust. Or, you see a UFO, it could be a lens flare. I just took my glasses off because you could see a glare. And sometimes that's what happens when you take a picture And you'll say, oh, well, that wasn't there when I took the picture, but I can see it in the picture now. Well, that's possibility of being a lens flare. Or what about Chinese lanterns? You know, I have no problem saying it's something I can explain. And I also have no problem saying this doesn't meet that explanation. So that's where I was with the Starchild. And then, but the fact that Lloyd just fought tooth and nail that everybody he talked to was wrong and he was right really broke my heart when I realized that I had been lied to.
Right.
Not just by him, but by the person who claimed to have been the geneticist, you know, because they were saying that the DNA couldn't be human. None of it could be human. When we had 2 DNA tests said that at least we knew the mother was human, and they started negating that. And then they started faking the DNA results.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And when I realized that, then it really hurt. I mean, I was in tears when I brought Chase Klutsky on. And if you want to talk to somebody, you need to talk to her.
Okay.
But Chase Klutsky came in. I ran into her at the International UFO Congress in Phoenix. And it was 2 years after Lloyd had passed. And she was doing a lecture. In her lecture, she had written a book called Admissibility. And that was proving, it was about gathering evidence and proving beyond reasonable doubt that would meet the standards of admissibility in a court of law. And so the book that she wrote and her lecture and just the way she came across, her integrity was, you can't refute something that is that honest and will come out and say, you're wrong. This is how it really truly is. So when I met her, after her lecture, somebody came up to her and asked her, you know, you have the Q&A at the end of lectures. And the first person came up and said, asked her what the end all evidence that she would need for her investigative skills and stuff. And she said, DNA. Well, I have a skull, a real live skull or a real dead skull with teeth. And I ran, and I haven't run in my entire adult life because I have so many joint replacements. I literally ran down the center aisle to be the next person in line. And I said, I have DNA. I own the Starchild. I have the DNA, and I happen to have had the skull with me. And she said, whoever is out there, tie her down. Do not let her get out of here. I want to talk to her. And it only took us 6 months to 8 months to find out truly what this was. And it didn't cost $7 million, which is what Lloyd was asking for. It cost me less than $6,000 to get the DNA done.
And so the only thing conclusive is that the mother was human.
No, mother's human, daddy's human, Starchild is human.
So it's all human. There's no.
It's all human.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I have answers for all the deformities. It's not deformed. It has hydrocephalic. It's got water on the brain. It has there's trauma, but the eyes aren't low set. The sinuses are the way they're supposed to be at the age that the child was. So it's anticlimactic.
That had to be disheartening to all those people that were expecting here's our evidence.
Not disheartening. No. It was a battle. I have haters now. You know, the trolls have come out. And I'm to the point, I just don't give a shit anymore. You know, I've even let my webpage go. I'm not paying for my webpage anymore. If it's up, that's great. I don't really care, because it's been 20 years this thing's been working on. The Starchild project website will probably be always on, but I'm not going to pay $200 a year, because I don't have it, to keep my website up, to say that they're lying. It's just not worth it.
So, I mean, and you've not tried to get any kind of monetary gain from any of this?
I never wanted it. All I wanted is for this thing to do whatever it was going to do to help our children not have the birth defects they have, or live with more birth defects than one or two. That was my whole goal, is the biomedical that could come from it. And there's no way that I was ever going to make any money. And I knew that Lloyd and the rest of the team all thought they were going to get rich off of it. And Lloyd, even his friends, told me, Melanie, you need to be careful. He's in it for the fame and the money. And I just didn't believe him. I thought that he was genuine and was looking for the truth. I didn't realize that he was not going to accept the truth. So I'm kind of glad he passed away, so that I could get to the truth.
Oh, I hear you.
Know?
It's just like in the paranormal world, when we're
Mhm.
doing, ghost investigations, you have to question people that get evidence every single time they go out on an investigation.
Right.
There's got to be there's got to be some kind of explanation for why certain things happen.
Right.
And you have to question those people, because are they in it because they're trying to prove or disprove? Or are they in it to get some kind of fame?
Right.
So at least you pursued the truth.
That the truth is what I always pursue. Now, you can take my story of being an abductee person, or having experiences, or even having children on different planets. You can take it or leave it. I don't care. I know what my truth is. Am I getting anything out of it? Yeah, headaches.
Right.
I'm not getting a dadgum thing out of it. I'm not writing a book. I don't care. I do what I do because I love to do it. I'm not getting anything out of it except for pleasure of doing it.
Right.
So you don't make any money in this field. You just don't.
Now, other than, say, visually or from experience, do you have any other evidence that would say that there is life out there?
Not that would make admissibility.
Okay.
I don't have any concrete evidence personally. Do I believe that there is evidence? Yes. And I think that evidence you're going to find when and if we ever, I think we've been genetically manipulated. The human race has been genetically manipulated by aliens. Can we ever prove that? Not until we get an alien that we can get their DNA out of.
True.
So for those people who think that the Starchild was that thing, shouldn't be mad at me, because I'm not saying that human origins haven't been manipulated by ETs. It's just this isn't the smoking gun that everybody was hoping it was. I'm not saying that there is no manipulation. I'm just saying this isn't the smoking gun. And people hate me because they wanted this to be the smoking gun.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Well,
Sorry.
I have to admit, it's disappointing to me, because I really wanted it to be true,
Yeah, we all did. I mean, but in reality, my first thought is it's a deformed human. That was my first thought. And in the end all, it's a deformed human. It's a sad thing. This child was left laying on its back its entire life.
Oh my gosh, really?
And that's why it's so flat.
Oh,
in the back. It was born and it never had a chance. which is what you're going to see with so many deformities. That, you know, this child lived for 5 years on its back. But what does that say about the people that took care of it?
Or didn't take care of it, should we
Well,
say?
no, they did, because he lived for 5 years.
Mm.
You know, he lived for 5 years. He was taking care of it. They couldn't have lifted his head up. It would have broken his neck.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so they
Okay,
took
I got you.
excellent care of this kid for this child to have lived 5 years. That says this community who he lived with, who he was born into, you know, respected life. Back 900 years ago, most people would have thought this was a demonic child and killed it.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
or let it die, just put it out, you know, in the wilderness and just let it die. These people had reverence for it, you know, had respected it and almost honored it, put it up on a pedestal, if you will, and took excellent care of it. So because of that, that's why I gave it back. I don't even own it. What I showed you was the replica.
Okay.
Okay. I gave it back to Mexico so that it could go home. Now it's still in Juarez. I'm sure it's still in the box I gave it to him in. And I'm sure it's still in there right where I left it. Because I bet you anything, nobody cares. But it was the right thing to do. And I
Oh,
had people
yes.
wanted me to sell it to them. And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, I can afford it. And I'm like, no, you can't. And they're like, well, how do you know? And I'm like, make me an offer. I'm going to double the asking price. You know, it's not for sale. You don't sell. And that's just because that's who I am.
Yeah.
This little baby, I took possession of and protected it. And I gave it back. That's just how I am.
You're a good person for that.
I try.
Because you could have profited off of that, I guarantee you.
Oh yeah, I think I could have by selling it, you know, because there were people that had money that really wanted it, and I'm like, no, you don't buy it. And to me, this thing still has a special place in my heart, a very, very special place in my heart, and it brings tears to me every time I think about it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap it up after that. But we were talking off air about a certain person that seen something coming back from Houston, and you said you had some knowledge of that. So,
well, Houston, of course, is NASA, and there's a lot of sightings coming out of Houston within the last week or so. We've had at least 3 cases that I know of that are from that area. So there's something going on. I'm waiting on my investigators to get back with me, but I truly don't think it's going to be that. I think it's probably something from our government that's out there, because it's happening so frequently. I don't know. I don't think it's any of Elon Musk's stuff, you know, because he's got a lot of satellites going up right now.
right.
And there has been some sightings of his satellites of late out there that have come through Texas. That is not one of them. I'm thinking that is probably a weaponized aircraft that is out there. Being here in El Paso and with Fort Bliss and all the drones that we have just here, plus I know other secret bases around. You know, we have White Sands Missile Range here. We've got, you know, where the atomic bomb came from. So I know just in my area that there's a lot of stuff in research and development that's up there that are being people are thinking are UFOs when they're man-made.
Okay.
So I am going to say that is probably one of those secret projects, those black ops.
Okay. Well, we'll end it right there.
Okay.
And I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on.
And I know you hadn't been feeling good today, and you were gracious enough to come on anyway.
Well, I'm here for anybody. I like to talk about this stuff no matter what. I'll be on my deathbed telling my grandkid, let me tell you about the olden days. No.
Poor boy.